Hello class, today we are going to be looking at incidence of taxation. Incidence of taxation. Incidence of taxation simply refers as where the burden of a tax imposed by government lies. So it simply means who is ultimately paying the tax imposed by government. So sometimes producers pay the tax and sometimes consumers pay the tax. And we have some situations whereby both producers and consumers have to share it, they have to share the imposed tax. But the concept of elasticity of demand will help us to know who is paying the tax. So if you have a question, then what you just have to do is to know the price elasticity of demand of that good. So when you know price elasticity of demand of a particular good, then you can easily know who is ultimately paying the tax imposed by government. Government can, of course, imposes tax for different reasons. It could be as a result of maybe they want to increase the government's revenue, or they want to reduce consumption of some particular goods. Whatever the case is, what we just have to know is who is ultimately paying the tax. So for you to know that, I said you should use your words, knowledge of elasticity of demand. So if you know your elasticity of demand, we are given a question, try to know the elasticity of demand of that goods that tax is imposed upon. Then from there, you know who is paying the tax. So let's start from fairly inelastic. So if the tax imposed is unfairly inelastic, who is going to pay the tax? So the first thing for you, quickly, because of your exam, there are a lot of ways through which I can explain this, but I just want to be punchy. When you're writing exams, what you can simply do and get your answer straight. So if you're writing exams and you have seen that the question given to you or the goods in the question is fairly inelastic, for fairly inelastic first, that's what we are doing now. If the goods that tax is imposed upon is fairly inelastic, so quickly draw your fairly inelastic. So if you are drawing it, you draw it now, then this will be, make sure that the space, this is price, of course, this is quantity, and ensure that the space here is larger than the space in quantity. So we have P naught here. I can say our P naught is the first price. Let's say is 4. Then the corresponding quantity, let's say, is 10. So you can simply have your demand curve now. This is primarily inelastic because the space here is greater than the space here. The space you have when the price increases maybe to 7, the space that happens here, which leads to the change in quantity, let's say the new quantity is 12. The change from 4 to 7 is larger than change to 12 from 12 to 10 of quantity demanded. Do you understand? So this space here must be greater than the space here. That is another way of knowing your fairly inelastic. And if you use your calculation, if you use the formula, the percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage in price, to look for what the elasticity of demand is of this I have drawn here, you are going to see that it's going to be fairly inelastic. So it means that when you have something like this, you must know how to draw this curve. If you have something like this now, you can see that the space here is not up to the space here. It's not up to the space here. So in that case now, you see that what we have for the price now and for the quantity, so the slight change in price leads to greater change in quantity demanded. You can see the space here is greater than the change in price. So this is going to give a fairly elastic. But look at this one, is different. So this is fairly inelastic. So when you draw your fairly inelastic graph now, so we can have our initial demand curve. We are saying this is the initial and this is the initial. So this is where we have the intersection. So we can make it here as our what? As our supply. Since this is demand, then this is supply. So immediately there is increase from 4 to 7. There must be something here. There must be supply curve here, which is S1. Why do we have the S1? S1 will always be there. And if you see it, it decreases. Why is supply decreasing? When government imposes tax, of course, producer will react first to it. So when the producer reacts first, and it's going to react by reducing the quantity he supplies, because he doesn't know what the reaction of the producer, how much the reaction of producer will be, of the consumers will be. So when he sees the reaction, then he can now adjust. So initially, primarily, supply curve shifts, upward, that it decreases. That is why you must have your S1. Now, so what are we going to do now? We are now going to look at the incidence of taxation now. The incidence now cover from this point, from the point of intersection from S1, then to the S0 here. So this point now is our point of incidence of taxation. So this is the whole tax now, the incidence. Then how do they pay the tax will be seen from this point to this point. Don't forget, you have to note it from S0, S1 to S0. So when you note it here like this, then let's now see who pays the tax. Now, from 7 to 4. Don't forget, ordinarily the tax is, the former price is 4, and government now increases. If you look at it now, from 4 to 7, it means government increases $3. Let's say $3. Now from 4 to 7, government increases $3 tax. Now, but the incidence covers to S0, so that we are not going to stop at 4 here. We are going to stop. Let's say this is also 3, so we stop at $3 here. So it means this $3 is for supply now. So let's now see from this point to this point. Of course, consumers pay from 4 to 7. Consumers here, consumer, he pays what? 4 to 7. We can now say consumer 7 minus 4. So consumer pay $3, extra of $3. And this remaining from 4 to this point of the incidence of taxation, 4 to 3 here. So that is for supplier. So supplier pay 4 minus 3. So which is what? $1. So if you look at it now, who is paying more? 3 and 1. Consumer pays more. So if you draw your graph like this, you can simply know that when the goods in question is fairly inelastic, consumer pays more than than producer, although both of them share the incidence, both of them bears the burden. That is what we are looking at. So because the body they bear starts from S1 to S0, then the consumer will start from the first equilibrium here to the S1, so which is 7 to 4. He pays 4 before, then he's now paying 7, so he pays extra 3. But who covers the remaining effect from 4 to the S0? Don't forget I said it's going to be from S0 to S1. So who pays this one from 3 to 4 here? So it's going to be 4 minus 3, which is supplier. Supplier is paying 1. So summarily, when the tax imposed, if the elasticity of demand of the tax imposed is on the incidence of if the elasticity of demand of the tax imposed is fairly inelastic, of course, the consumers will pay while the producers will pay. However, consumers pay higher than producers. So do you understand that? So let's quickly look at when we have fairly elastic. So when we have fairly elastic, if you have fairly elastic, so I can simply draw. Don't forget I said what we need to do first is just for you to do what? To draw your fairly elastic. How do you draw a fairly elastic? You just ensure that the space, you draw the first one, let the space here not up to that of quantity demanded. So we can say this is P0, P1, then trace it, this is Q1, this is Q0. So if you draw the demand curve like this, so where do you think will be your equilibrium knots now, E0? Of course it's going to be here, because this is where we have P0 and Q0. So we can You can just draw it. You can draw it down and draw it down. That's going to be S naught, right? This is going to be S naught. Now, I told you when we say this is 4 and this is, let's say, 6, government has imposed how much tax now? From 4 to 2. It moves now to 2. So which is going to be here. That will be another S1 here. And I said what you just have to know is your incidence of taxation starts from where? Starts from your S1 to S0. So from S1 to S0. So it means all of this now from here to this place now is your incidence of taxation, is the burden. So how are they sharing the burden now? Who is carrying the burden? Now if you look at the carrier of the burden now, let's see. Don't forget, this is the consumer. We start from consumer. Consumers pay from 4 to 6. Automatically, this portion is for consumer. Then we have consumer to be 6 minus 4. So consumer pays how much now? $2. Okay, then let's now look at, let's say this is, the space is much here. This can be, let's say this can be 1. Of course, it can be 1. So if it is 1, if you look at the space, ordinarily you just look at it without even attaching any number to it. If you look at the space here, from here to here, which is for consumer, then from here to here, from this point to this point, you can see that this space is bigger than this space. It's even showing that without even attaching, you don't even need to, you might not even attach number. Without even attaching number, you know that the burden here is greater than the burden here. Of course, the first one, the upper one is for consumer, then this one is for supplier. It means that supplier pay more here than the consumer. So if we say now 4 and 1, I can say supplier is 4 minus 1, which is going to give us 3. So it shows that supplier pay more if the elasticity of demand of such goods that we are looking at is fairly elastic. Two of them pays, producers and consumer pay. However, producers pay more, which is supplier or producers pay more than what? Than consumer, as the space shown and as the figure also shown. Please subscribe and get more of our videos.